Hi everyone, welcome to this podcast that we're doing today. I'm delighted to be joined by Tripp Isenhour, former PGA Tour player, currently working as an analyst with the Golf Channel and numerous other media outlets, and also working in the performance space with a number of players as well. The topic today is going to be very much on the psychology side of the game, mastering your mind, and how you can use that to elevate your golf game. So, Tripp, thank you very much for coming on and joining us. Great to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be a part of it, Tom. I love it. Big fan of the platform and all the things that you guys are doing to really elevate players' games. And now we've got a new wrinkle, and I love it. I love this new mental part of it because, the mental game is an abstract concept. It's what you're thinking, and only you know what's going on inside your head. And when we can start to put it down and see it and start to get patterns, we can really start to get way ahead of everybody else on the mental game because the mental game is the difference maker, as you and I both know. As when you were playing and when I was playing, the best players were sure they were good physically, but they were always better mentally, weren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at every player who's been world number one, and at that particular period, yes, they was very, very skilled at what they do, but mentally, the decisions they make, that was the big separator and what made them so good. And I mean, Scotty Scheffler at the moment, I think is an embodiment of that. You very rarely see him make a big mistake. If he does, he reacts very, very well to that. And hopefully by the end of this webinar, you'll have got some tools and ideas that you can use to help you with that. The timing is very good as well. If you're listening to this quite recently after it's recorded, we're just releasing the mental stats section within Upgame. This is basically you can tag each shot, what your mental process was like, and then go back and review that for different areas such as tee shots, short game, putting at the end of the round as well. So we'll touch on that as we go through the presentation, but enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we'll do here is get going and kind of what our goal is. Well, just what Tom just said. We want to understand this new concept that they're adding. We want to teach you how to kind of collect and analyze the stats that really matter, that are going to deliver, a better golf, which is what we all want. That's what we're all trying to do. And you want to use that data not only with your coach but yourself and making sure that you've got mental strategies to really sharpen the mental side of the game because as Tom and I said, it's the big difference maker. And of course, at the end, we will get into some Q&A. Um, the mental game, why it matters? Well, it says 70+%. At the top level, I'm going to put it at 90 to 95% because when on the DP World Tour or the PGA Tour or the Corn Ferry Tour or any competitive high level tour, it is really the physical skills aren't really what separate. Sure, Scotty Scheffler probably hits a few more better shots than the average tour player, but what Scotty's doing is he's got a great game plan. He's prepared properly. He is confident in his ability to execute under the most extreme pressure. And there's focus, confidence, as we said, resilience. What he looks for when he makes a bogey, his bounce back is remarkable. Within 1 to 2 holes, he's already got it back more times than not. And it's very rare he makes a bogey, but then he's able to not take 2 steps backwards when he does. He keeps marching forward and he keeps distancing himself from fields because of that resilience. And that's a mental strength. It really is. It's the ability to put that behind you immediately, let it go, don't let it linger in your mind or on your score, on your game, and make better decisions going forward. So that's what we're looking at here is, data driven mental coaching. This is the first time, I've seen this. I have a course that I do with Dr. Bob Rotella. It's the Tournament Mindset series, and we had a digital calculator as part, or a mental calculator as part of that. But to have it as part of a stats platform like Upgame has done, Tom, hats off to you guys because that really will differentiate these players, and we'll get into more recognizing those patterns. But talk about like how important putting that into the app is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something we've spoke about for a while. We finally got in there. I think if you're a good player, you go back through your round and you think of some of the poorer shots that you've hit. I would say 99% of that time, they will be instances where you've had some doubt over the shot. Maybe you've been uncomfortable with the line, the tee shot. Is this putt going to break a little bit more than I think? And that's what the real top players, they're zoned in, they're having that clearer focus, which is obviously one of the key mental skills you mentioned there. They then obviously are very confident. That confidence can come from various sources. I think it's important to try and build confidence from stuff within your control. Then fact does it not, if you're just constantly relying on results, you're going to struggle to find confidence. So can we get it from our practice? Can we get it from our preparation? Is a big thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, our preparation's everything, and some of the stats that we can look at for performance patterns that you can kind of start to see when we're able to quantify this is we're going to see patterns over time develop, and that is stuff that you as a player are not aware of. Like, if when you get under pressure, you tend to hit your iron short and left, but your process also wasn't good. Well, are you thinking about outcome there? So the correlation now that we can do, we saw on the stats that we're missing, that 170-yard shot on the last three holes to make the cut. We're missing it short left time and again. Well, you might think it's a physical problem, but now we can come in and say, wait a minute, on each of those, my process was not where we wanted. And we'll get into that here in a second, but we can start to see that. And then when we do get into trouble, how quickly we bounce back. And those are certainly things that we want to do and start to quantify and get better at recognizing. And inconsistent timing. Tom, you and I have talked about this a lot. And don't think that this is, that the best players are insulated from this. They're not. I mean, when your pre-shot routines get out of timing, out of rhythm, and not doing the same things, you're out of your process. You're not where you want to be. And usually that becomes excessive focus on outcomes and results. So you're scared of missing the shot in a certain area, which is now we're into the future, thinking about where the ball we don't want it to go, and not being really focused on our process. And I can use a couple of examples for players in recent memory in 2025. Rory McIlroy at the Masters, his timing of his routine, he was walking way too fast, way too slow. He was quick. He was very inconsistent. His timing. He fortunately is so talented that he could overcome that, and he almost didn't, and get that green jacket that was so elusive for so long. And then Tommy Fleetwood is another guy that you work with at the Travelers. He got out of his process and his routine, and it's something that the best players are good at saying, okay, I messed up on that. Now I'm going to be better about it, right?
Yeah, I think the timing of the routines is a very good point to look at. And again, we're going to speak in a little bit about actual videoing pre-shot routines and monitoring them, particularly the time over the ball, I think is a really important one. I think we all play the game. We all know that you are going to have those thoughts from time to time. Like you stand on a hole and you see water left, and as a human being, you get that thought of, oh, I don't want to go left, and that will happen, and that does happen to even the best players. The difference between the poorer ones and the best players is they then would reprogram that. They would get into the process. They would visualize the shot that they want. They would pick the target that they want. They will then get over the ball, and there won't be those thoughts. They will be very consistent with the process that they're on, and that could be a swing thought. That could be the thought of a target. Um, it could be they could be over the ball for a little bit longer. They could be over the ball for a very sort of one look and go. Like if you think of someone like Ludwig Oberg or Tiger Woods, and you watch them over the ball, certainly Tiger at his peak, he had if you go back and watch the old videos, you will see with an iron, it'll be a little waggle, look at the target down, and goes very quickly. And that's something I think, I don't know because I don't work with him, but I think Oberg has copied and brought into his game. So they're getting that consistent timing over the ball. Obviously, before that, you've got to take your time to calculate the shot, work it out, and you might have two practice swings to feel what you're trying to do. You might have three, you might have a half practice swing. That's probably not the important part of it, but once you get over that ball to pull the trigger, you've got to have that clarity in what you're doing. And I think that's a big separator. And again, if you go through your round of golf and as you use the mental stats on the platform, I think you'll see very clearly a correlation between the routines or the mental processes that are very good and the ones that are not so good.
Yeah, exactly. And Rory McIlroy actually, to your point, just to elaborate a little bit further, Rory McIlroy actually in the playoff at the Players Championship that carried over into Monday. It was very cold and windy that day, and to here's the thing, like a lot of these young players that I work with, and they think, well, I shouldn't have any like thoughts of hitting in the water. I gotta, I should that shouldn't happen. Rory said walking from 16 to 17, he saw himself hitting the ball in the water. He said that was a negative thought. I couldn't stop that, but what I had to do was overwhelm it with really good positive affirmations about what I wanted to happen and what I could and what I was capable of doing. So when you get those negative thoughts, don't act like you shouldn't have them. To your point, Tom, recognize that and then come back and pull your back right into your process, but overwhelm that negative with things that we want to happen and not what we don't want to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the subject of Rory at the Masters, there was a fantastic story about what his caddy said to him, Harry Diamond, on the way back to that
Yeah,
18th tee in the playoff. Now, Rory, as we all know, was desperately trying to win that Masters for a number of years now, and having come so close, it felt like it had maybe slipped away. However, on that drive back, Harry, I think, said to him, right, we'd have taken this position on
yeah,
Monday at the start of the week. And that reframing and like just keeping things in perspective, I think we can all assume that that played quite a big part in what followed next.
yeah. Yeah, and Rory said it. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about. I have a negative thought about the outcome of the round. I'm in a playoff. My gosh, I blew this lead. Instead, it's like, hey, man, you would have given anything on the first part of the week to be right here to have a chance to win. So let's get positive about where we are. So that's a great point. But now on this next slide, what stats to track? Now this is just some that we have on here. It doesn't. You need to come up with your list, and where you can get with your coaches, you can start finding correlations where, if I get better in this area, it contributes to better scoring, it contributes to better mental things. But certainly in today's game, the tee shot is probably 1A right now with putting. It used to be probably more putting than anything. Putting's still very, very important, but the tee shot, how you're hitting your tee shots, your decisions, your game planning when you go into that. And that's part of the mental game, is understanding that it's not just what we're thinking while we're over the shot, but it's thinking about using our strengths and formulating a game plan. That's part of the mental game as well. And that, a good game plan and a good solid strategy that gives you confidence to attack the holes with your strengths and play away from your weaknesses, that should give you confidence. And anything we can do to start building that confidence base and start doing it is certainly going to help you. And there's no better platform than Upgame with that. I mean, you've got your diamonds now that you can use, and, for your shots into greens. You've got your shot patterns that you can absolutely, see where you need to move your targets when you're going over a golf course. So there's nothing like it. It's Upgame blows everything away, and you people that are using Upgame, you have a huge advantage, and that is another thing of the mental game that should give you confidence, is the fact that you're doing things that other people aren't necessarily doing, so you've got a leg up on them. And again, those are all the things that we talk about. Birdie to bogey bounce back is one of those things that we talked about that Scheffler does so well. And the reason why we look at that is because a lot of times with some students that I've worked with, you see a player gets off to a great start. They're 3 under through six. They hit a bad shot at seven to the left off the tee, and they keep hitting it bad shots. They keep hitting bad shots, and they don't bounce back from a misstep here and there. And that means we're carrying that forward. We're out of where we want to be. We're out of our process, and you're going to hear that word a lot in the mental game. But those things is letting results pull you out of where we want to be in the ideal position when we play, which is in the present moment. So that's why that's important. And par three and par five scoring differentials, honestly, tour players, they mess up par threes more than anything in the world. And it's because at times they get too aggressive with some of their shot choices. They short side their misses, and they don't play par threes very well. Now the players that typically do play the par threes fairly well, well, those are usually better, stronger mental players. They play conservatively when they have to, and they very rarely attack flags on par threes. And then of course the par fives, that's where your money's made. You've got to take advantage of par fives. And one of the ways that we do that is looking at how good are we inside the scoring zone? Because even if we're not able to get to the green in two, we're certainly more times than not, probably 98% of the time, we're within, 150 yards and in, which is the scoring zone. And how efficient are we at getting the ball close and giving ourselves good looks at birdies on those par five holes? Because that's almost a guarantee to low scoring. If you can take advantage of three of the four par fives most of the times you play, that's giving yourself three under par holes to start the round with a great short game and attitude for inside the scoring zone. There's another advantage. And of course, pre-shot routine consistency. Tom talked about that, and all of this comes into what decisions are we making? Are we too aggressive with our shot choices and short-sighting ourselves too much, or are we too conservative? Which probably doesn't happen much, Tom, but all of those things that we look at are things that you should be looking for patterns in on your stat platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the real key features that users should be using is the plan round. And what that can do is that can obviously show you your shot patterns on the map of a course that you're playing and hopefully give you a lot of confidence. Because if you pick a target and you can see, right, if I aim there, I'm 100% going to be in play off the tee. I would hope that you could swing a bit freer and a bit more confident than if you had a target and you saw, right, 50% of them are going to go in the water. So use that as a tool to help you free up on your tee shots, to help you plan those par threes. Like Tripp said, if you're making pars on the par threes, which certainly at tour level, they're typically in the sort of 200-yard range. If you're knocking it on the green, you're going to be gaining on your opposition. Knock it on the green, good pace putting, and then obviously the par fives, get it in and around the green where you can get it up and down and take advantage of those holes. And that's what you're seeing most weeks. I was just looking actually at the 3M Open. Kurt Kisiyama, he absolutely obliterated the par fives a bit last week. And that's going to be a key if you're trying to shoot a good under par score, win a tournament. Make sure you're taking advantage of that and picking good targets to allow yourself to do so.
Yeah, and then I'll let you continue here with this because this is now the mental process part of the tab that's going to be active on Upgame here soon.
Yeah, so I'm delighted to get this in there. What we want to do is on each shot, you get the option to grade your mental process on a scale of very poor, poor, average, good, or excellent. Now, we've left it quite open at this stage, and mental process that can contain a lot of different factors, which we'll speak about now, Trip. But obviously, that could be something like your visualization of the shot you're trying to hit. That could be your commitment to the shot. It could be your acceptance after the shot. That's something I think very, very important. Are you hitting a bad shot and carrying that frustration, that lack of confidence, that frustration into the following shot? So, what I would encourage you to do with this is at the start of the round, choose right. does a good mental process look like for me on a shot? And it could be one of those things we mentioned. It could be something specific to you that you and your coach have come up with. And then on each shot, you grade that. At the end of the round, go back through. You will see your process scored, as you can see on the image on the right. Excellent, good. Trying to obviously limit those poor and very poor percentage numbers. And also then look at your best shots from that round, which you can actually now do as well if you go to round analysis. And there's an AI feature there that will give you an AI analysis of the round that will show you your three best shots and your three worst shots. Have a look at those worst shots and what was your mental process like on them. Because so often I think a player will hit a bad tee shot or a bad iron shot, and it'll be right, golf swing. I was inside, I flipped it, I blocked it, I got stuck, whatever it was. Why did you get stuck? Why did you flip it? Was it, oh, I'm in between clubs, or oh, where's the wind direction? I'm not sure. I would bet more often than not it will be down to a mental process mistake than a technical mistake. So start with that. The other thing I think is a really good habit to get into is actual some sort of summaries and journaling now. In the chat where all your rounds go, if you go in that, you will see that you can actually type text messages in there that your coach can see. I think a really good one of that is to, and then what are you going to do about that? So if I give you an example there, good might be my 5 to 10 foot was really, really good. I hold 4 out of 4 from that range, and my mental process was really good on those putts. I can get better by being better off the tee. I had a left miss on that particular day, and to get better at that, it might be that I've actually slipped back into a poor technical fault, or it's there was trouble up the right side of the hole. I didn't commit to my shot. So very just simple questions, but gives you a much better sort of post-round feedback and review. Obviously, that would be what I would encourage you to do. Tripp, give me your thoughts on how
Yeah.
you can best use this feature.
Absolutely, and to add more to your point of doing it right after the round because it's fresh. I think making those notes because you're not going to remember them, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks. Do it right then and think about it. But I want to say one thing is, and I laugh all the time because people think that oh man, I did an excellent routine. My process was great. I did everything exactly the way I wanted to do and the ball still went in the water. A good process, an excellent process is not, the correlation is not 100% that every time you do that, the shot's going to be where you want. It's golf. As Dr. Rotella says, it's not a game of perfect. It's an imperfect game. It is a game of mistakes. But the correlation between a poor process and a poor shot, now that's much higher. That correlation is really, really high. And so that's why, if you give yourself your best chance of playing great golf, if we can get to the good and excellent on every shot we hit, and that be our goal every time we play, is today I'm going to have this process. I'm not going to think about what I'm shooting. I'm going to be committed to just staying right in my process all the way through. And those being your goals when you play, you're going to find that you become a lot more consistent as a tournament player. And then the other thing that is so wonderful about this and start to recognize a couple of things. And I'm going to give you an example of where you probably would think of swing or something else when it really is your mind that you need to understand is what caused the physical part. And let's say we're on a par three, you've got a 5 iron, it's over water, downhill, and your process is you've got a great target, you have done everything great, you visualized, you felt the shot that you want to hit. We've got our target. We come into the ball, we set up, and all of a sudden a gust of wind comes in, and we say, oh, I better hit this a little harder. We don't back away and reprogram, and we try to swing harder than what we had already originally visualized. We end up hitting it a little fat, and it goes in the water. Well, we think it was fat because of a physical error, but what happened there was a breakdown in your process. That would be a very poor process or a poor process. So start understanding what that is and recognize it. And instead of instinctively going to a swing mechanical flaw, oftentimes, like Tom said earlier, it's something that goes on up here, either a fear, a doubt, or changing the process that ultimately leads to where your coach would say, oh, you flipped your hands or you hung back or you did whatever. And if we were in a great process point or through our process with a clear mind and clear intent, those things probably, or we lessen the chance of those swing, flaws showing up. So we can go to this and how coaches can leverage this. Um, I love this because over time you're going to get a pattern. And I'll give you an example of a pattern showing up on a, typically, through let's say you play a couple of months of tournament golf and you've got all this in, and through your notes and through whatever else, every time you're on a hole like 18 at TPC Sawgrass, a hole we all know, water down the left, and we start to see that every time you're on a long par four like that, your tee shots have poor or very poor mental processes. Well, okay. So now we can set practice and we can start saying, okay, well, we're obviously fearing the ball going left. And the result is almost every time we hit it way right, and occasionally we do hit a pull into the water. So now we set up a practice where we go to a hole like that with trouble down the left, and we go out with five balls, and we really get into our process of making a great routine, visualizing the shot that we want, and now we start attacking that deficiency, not only with of the physical part of it, but with the mental part of it. So then we can start to build confidence. And then another way to do it is use the video. Get a video of you on a hole like that doing a perfect routine and start to visualize yourself and start seeing yourself doing that perfect routine on holes like that. So that now we have something to fall back on that we can start to build confidence when we are on those holes. That's just one example, Tom. But I mean, there's tons of different ways that we can individualize this and the patterns that we start to see and recognizing them and attacking them, not just physically, but mentally.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at times people try and separate the mental game from the physical and the technical when really what you're trying to do is you're trying to bring them together. And I love the idea you've said there about if you've got an issue with like trouble up one side of the hole, whether that's the left or the right, go on the golf course and practice that. Find a hole where there's trouble up that side and actually practice in that environment and go through your routine. Try and put some consequence on that. I mean, there was a very extreme case of this. I was telling Tripp the other day. Actually, it was a university team. A friend of mine was at it, and I think it was actually Bob Rotella was working with them. And it was a player who was struggling off the tee on sort of under pressure. So he got him to drive his car out onto the range around the 280, 300 yard mark, park it up the left side. He got the coach to drive his car up on the right side, and he then had to hit 10 drives between those cars. Now,
Wow.
before those cars were there, he was hitting it perfect, fantastic. The moment they were there, that consequence suddenly goes up. Now, I'm not, before any greenkeepers start emailing into Upgame, I'm not suggesting that you drive your car out onto your practice facility or the first hole. But if you can find a way of recreating that pressure and that feeling in practice, that can only be a good thing. And you will probably see those same mental thoughts creep up in that situation. And it's a lot easier to fix them there than it is on the 72nd hole of a tournament when you've got a one-shot lead. So have a think of that and how that can apply to your game and your practice. And I think that will be a really good addition for you.
Yeah, no question. And I love getting my students to not just spend time on the range. They've got to practice in real environment situations, and that's why you challenge them to go out and hit those four or five drives exactly how we want, and those kind of goal markers to finish your practice. So, what you can do as a player again, I can't sing the praises enough of how you can journal, this, and when you're going back through your round, it really gives you a very quick ability to start going back through your round, not just what you did physically, but what you did mentally. And then you can, of course, start to build a action plan. And again, this is part of the mental game. Is we never want to make our weaknesses strengths, but we want to see where we have patterns of weakness and make those gradually better over time with an action plan to improve. And then our strengths, what we do well, we want to keep pounding those. We want to keep sharpening that knife. We want to get better and recognizing the things that we do well. And when we plan rounds, play into those strengths and play away from our weaknesses. And all that gives you confidence as a player. And that's all what the mental game is. And that's where your coach can help you. And you gotta be honest. You gotta have some self-assessment that is honest. And when you mess up, you gotta recognize it and start to recognize some of the patterns that we've talked about. And that'll help you make better decisions and then trust in your game when you play. So, any additional thing on that, Tom?
No, I think what you've got there, the action plan, I think journaling is something I've seen a lot of players do a lot of, and I think is a fantastic habit to do. Certainly post round, we touched on it before. It could be just a few simple questions. What do you do well? What do you want to do better, and how are you going to do it? I think that's a little habit you can do. You can type that into the chat on the app, give that a try, share that with your coach, and just keep that feedback loop active.
Right. And then, of course, integrating Upgame into your routine. Again, this is just echoing more of that point. Um, and start using the mental game with the physical for your practice plan adaptions. I think this is a very powerful tool, and used properly, it can really advance you as a player. So, we look at that in our final thoughts. Understand that the best players, they track, they're very aware of what they're doing mentally. I mean, they're working on that part of their game just as much, and it's also in their practice structure. It's mainly focused around the short game, and that's where you really have to understand that you can't have a good mental game if you don't have a good short game. You can't have a good short game if you don't have a good mental game, because the mental game or the short game is kind of your lifeboat. On the days where we're not hitting it like we want, the short game, you can survive the storm. You can weather the storm with a good short game. And I've walked around with Scotty Scheffler, many times over the last several years, and I can tell you I've watched him play rounds where he was not on, but he still scored, right around par in a major championship because his short game is so good. And that's part of the mental game as well. But now we have Upgame to provide structure and insight into what we're actually thinking while we're doing this. And if you can commit to honest reflection and be consistent about this, it's a huge asset, a huge arrow in your quiver, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, the short game. I mean, I've been fortunate to work with Jason Day as part of his team for a number of years now, and you look at how strong his short game, his holding out is, and that's like what he's got. Obviously, a very certainly been well number one, really good record in majors, won a major, and having that sort of enjoyment on the days where it isn't going your way to knuckle down, right? I'm going to love the challenge of getting up and down, of getting this ball around the golf course. And quite often that's the round at the end of the week that wins players of tournaments. It's very rarely they have four rounds where they keep shooting 66. There's one day where the poo hits the fan. I was going to say a naughty word there. We'll go with that. And they have the skill set, the mentality to embrace it, to dig in and to get it round. So again, that's something, link it to your practice. Have days where you turn up, you're maybe not hitting it well, your focus is maybe not quite where it is in practice. You're not going to be 100% every day, no one is, but embrace that day as right. This is a chance to work on some of those mental skills, which hopefully will help you get over the line in the tournament down the line.
That's perfect. Now we got to see if we got any questions we can answer. Thank you guys for joining us. And let's if we got any questions there, Tom.
Yeah, we've got a few questions here. A couple of them linked to what we've spoken about, but we can elaborate on. The first one we had was, how do you keep from thinking about your score while you're playing? Now, again, I think we've all been there. You've maybe birdied the first four holes,
Yeah,
maybe you haven't birdied the first four holes, but you've had a good start to a round. I know thoughts creep in. How do
yeah.
you deal with that, Trip?
Look, it's so hard to do, but it takes training, and the better you can get at it, I think the better you'll, or the more consistent you'll perform. I mean, think about it. Do you measure your daily life as, am I doing well today, or am I not doing well today? Am I, you set goals, and you have goals that you work towards, and your focus shouldn't be on how you're doing with a pro, with an outcome, which is score. You've got to not try to necessarily eliminate those thoughts, but start at this point. Every time you start thinking about, oh, I'm 4 under so far through 12 or whatever, quickly catch yourself and say, no, I'm going to get back into focusing on my process and my routine over here on the 13th tee. And I'm going to just keep doing that till I run out of holes. And if you can make that your goal every day, that I'm going to measure my round not by what I shoot numerically, but by how many times I do an excellent process all the way through the day. And that be your goal, and that be your focus. That can certainly switch your mindset off of an outcome thought like score and get you more into a present mindset, which is focus on what the task at hand. And when you mess up a process and you mess up a routine, be good about recognizing it and say, you know what? I didn't do so good on that one. I'm going to do better on the next one. So if we can put our focus there instead of a numerical outcome, it's not easy. It's not like flipping a switch, but the better you can get at that, the better your results will be.
Yeah, absolutely. Next one we've got. I play great at home and in practice rounds, but when I get to tournaments, I get nervous and my performance drops. How can I stop this from happening? Quite common,
Well,
I think, this one.
yeah, I mean, you see this a lot. Well, when the pressure's off, you play and you let yourself play. Your subconscious is doing what it's trained to do, and it shows your talent. A lot of times a player will say, "Well, I shot 65 at home before I left, and I went and just shot 78 in the first round." Well, your potential is the 65, and you're capable of shooting the 65 in the tournament. But what happened is, as we get closer to tournaments, typically what you'll see players, they get tighter, they get more careful, they get more worried about what they're going to shoot. They make it more like oh my gosh, I've got to be tight and I've got to be, control this. Instead, what Dr. Rotella has worked with me for so long on, and I wasn't the best at it, but I can tell you the tournaments I usually was up at the top of the leaderboard and won tournaments where I got looser and freer, where I had more fun. And understand, golf is a game. We're not trying to work at golf. Golf is a game to be played and enjoyed. And the more that closer we get to tournaments, we should be enjoying that process more and enjoying what we're getting ready to do. And Padraig Harrington, who's had a ton of success here in the summer of 2025, again in senior major championships, he said after winning the senior open that he actually tries now to have more fun and be looser on Sunday on the 18th hole than he is on Sunday on the first hole, or I mean on Thursday on the first hole. He's trying to get more fun and enjoy it more, and he's reaping the benefits of that. So don't make tournaments into something that we're trying to get. We want to get ready for them, we want to be prepared for them, but we need to be prepared by, hey, I'm going to go have fun doing what I love doing, and now I'm going to let myself go and get into my process each and every time.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And I think the only thing I'd say from my side is just make sure in your preparation at home you are working on those scenarios, like we said, not just hitting 100 balls on a golf swing or on a putting mat. Actually do some of that consequence practice
Yes.
to get you into that mindset as well. I think that's really important. We've got another one. Someone who has read Dr. Rotell's books, and they know about how important that scoring zone is. They've spent a lot of time practicing with the scoring clubs, but they're not seeing any improvement. Do you have any suggestions for how to practice these more effectively and see real progress?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in the tournament mindset series, we it's a 6 week program that we did with Dr. Bob Rotella. But what we have is a system that I actually came up with having the same problem. When I first turned pro, I mean, I had been trained by Dr. Rotella all the way through, you know, my junior golf and into college, and I knew how important the scoring clubs were, and I was working my tail off. I was absolutely just grinding away at those clubs, trying to get really, really good at them. And one day, it kind of light bulb moment, like, wait a minute, why am I doing it this way? I need to kind of start practicing it this way, and I call it the core number system. And I started practicing it that way, the short clubs or the scoring clubs. And it's a way to go about, you know, practicing them, but also hitting the shots that starts delivering consistent results because we want to control flight, we want to control spin, and we want to control distance. And lo and behold, I started practicing that way. And a year and a half later, I was a rookie on the PGA Tour. So for 8 years on the mini tours, trying to get better at these scoring clubs. And then I started practicing the core number system and using it. And a year and a half later, I was a rookie on the PGA Tour. And then I got to be around really, really, really good wedge players like Steve Stricker, like Zach Johnson, Jerry Kelly, friends of mine. And I started asking them kind of how they went about it. And I was like, they all kind of did a very similar system to what I did. So it's a really efficient way to get really good at your scoring clubs. And again, that's part of the tournament mindset series. But um, it's those clubs are so important. Whether you use the core number system or whatever, you have to get really good at those. You talk to every tour player, they tell you the difference is 150 yards and in, 160 yards and in. The scoring zone, Tom. We hear about it all the time, but it is the difference maker between being a tour player and a mini tour player and never making it professionally.
Yeah, absolutely. You think if you're going to make a birdie, you're not going to be making birdies from 30 foot, from 25 foot very often. If you've got a wedge in your hand, you've got a much more realistic chance of stuffing the ball in close than you have with a 6 iron, a 7 iron, and a 5 iron. So being really dialed with those clubs, even more so as you move up the levels. I mean, if you were at Royal Portrush the other week, or you watch the Masters or the PGA Tour, and you see where the pin positions are, where some of the sections that those pin positions are, you have to be so well dialed at those things. Tripp has said, the flight, the spin. It's all right hitting it 100 yards, but if that thing's going to screw back 30 foot to a back pin, you're not going to get the ball close. So being really sharp with those clubs, having those different options. There might be a case where you do want to zip it back. There might be one where you just want to one hop and stop. Um, you can't get good enough with those clubs, and that's going to help you make those birdies on those par fives, on those short par fours.
Yeah, and I mean, Rory McIlroy says it. He says, you know, in 2 weeks of tournament golf, he's going to have about 100 opportunities inside 160 yards. And when you look at the shots, when you just numerically look at it, like Ping did a great graph of the number of shots hit in tournament golf, and there's like a curve that goes way up around that 120 to 140 mark. You know, it goes way up, and then tee shots way up, and then you know, everybody's spending their time on their 5s and 6 irons. And it's like, wait a minute, most of your shots are hit off the tee and in that 120-yard range. So, you know, get really good with those would be my advice.
Yeah. We've got a couple more questions here, and then we'll obviously wrap up. Next one: how can I mentally prepare best for an upcoming round or tournament? Um, I think we've touched a little bit on this, but certainly the visualization part, I think, is a big part of this, and something I've seen players do the night before. Again, you might not be in a fortunate position as a tour where they might get the pins the night before, and they will know that right, the pin on the 17th at Sawgrass is back right or front left, and they can then visualize, they can plan, right, I'm going to have 140 yards into the wind, it's going to be a chippy 9 iron or 8 iron or whatever, and they can rehearse that shot and
Mhm.
through the routine. That would be something I would recommend. You can then obviously practice that shot in your warm up before the round. Use that warm up effectively to practice some of the shots that you're going to face. Again, visualizing them on the range. That would be how I would combat that. Trip. Any
Yeah.
thoughts for our man there?
Look, you need to spend time every day visualizing yourself hitting great shots, hitting shots that you on the course you're going to play, hitting shots in tournaments. See yourself. You have to see yourself succeeding. See yourself hitting, doing what you want to happen, and that will eventually put patterns in your subconscious where it expects that. And that's what we want to do. We want to program our mind for success. And that's what you need to be doing almost every day, really. See yourself playing great shots.
Yeah, we've got another one that I guess how you combat it would be a little bit similar, but maybe with a little bit more from your side on the mental aspect. Trip on this one. How do I handle a hole, in this case a tee shot, that doesn't suit my eye and I always mess up? And I think again as golfers we've all had that one hole or one shot on a golf course that we get to and we just can't get right. Um,
Yep.
we find out what to do.
Yeah, well, look, Ben Hogan. I mean, I go back to Ben Hogan. You read what he said about there was always two or three holes, and he did not start becoming the championship golfer he was. And there were two or three holes every golf course that he was just uncomfortable on, and he would either not hit driver on that hole if it was the driver that made him uncomfortable, but he figured out a way that he would find something that he could be comfortable with hitting it off the tee. You've got to have something that you can get in play. And if you're way better off hitting a 3 wood, or now they've got mini drivers, you're way better off hitting an iron off a tee with confidence than you are swinging at a driver without confidence. So what we want is you to find something that you can swing confidently and get it in play and eliminate the big number, because usually when you play those holes, you hit it into penalty areas, you add strokes to your score that's unnecessary. So you've got to understand, excuse me, that my computer there, but you've got to understand that those those holes are going to be there for everybody, but attack them with a confident approach with whatever club you need to get it in play, even if it's just laying up basically off the tee. That's okay. It's better to play those holes and not try to make birdies on them, but avoid the big mistakes. So hit something, find something that you can get in play confidently.
Yeah, perfect. And we'll have one more. How do I react better to a bad shot? Often one bad swing leads to a run of bad shots or holes. Again, very, very relatable.
Yeah.
Something that is, again, we spoke earlier, a big separator. If you think of Scotty Scheffler, final round of the Open at Portrush, eighth hole in the fairway bunker, did something that I don't think any of us expected. He left it in the fairway bunker. Very next hole, bounced back with a birdie. Um,
Well, yeah, I mean, he does it time and time again. Why? Why? Because he's in the present. He doesn't let a mistake carry forward. Look, we all make mistakes. And as I said, it's a game of mistakes. I mean, that's what this game is. And if you're focused on something that happened, a hole or two ago or a swing or two ago, you're not going to give yourself your best chance to recover from that. And I go back to Rob O'Neill, who was a former Navy SEAL 6 guy, who actually was the one who shot Osama bin Laden. He talked about SEAL training and what they do for the military, and what they make you make mistakes in their training, because they want to see the ones that are able to move past the mistakes and forget about it and keep attacking the plan, because the ones that hold on to mistakes, they're cut from the SEALs. And it's the same thing in golf. If you make a bogey and you're lingering on, golly, I hate that fifth hole while you're playing the seventh, you're a Navy SEAL who's holding on to a mistake, and you're going to get killed in the Navy SEALs. So that's why they do that because everybody makes mistakes, but it's the fact that you can stay in the present moment and keep moving forward with your process. You gotta let go and understand that golf is that game of mistakes, and you're gonna make them. Don't hold on to them. Get right back into you where you are, and be where you're. I always say, be where your golf ball is, not where it was, because that's what we need to do.
Brilliant. Um, Obviously, if anyone listens to this, they have any other further questions, they can obviously reach out to us on. I think you're on social media, Trip. Obviously, you've given them the link to the course on here as well. Um,
Yeah, that's at
oh,
here at the end. If you wanna find out more about the tournament mindset mastery, again, it's really a master class with Dr. Bob Rotella and I. It's a 6 week program. You can scan either QR code. You can. I'd love for you to book on my Calendly. Let's have a conversation about getting you better at the game of golf. And you guys are already way up here with everybody else if you're using this platform. I'm a big fan, and I look forward to more of this, Tom. This has been really fun.
no, I've absolutely, really, really, really enjoyed it. I hope those of you who's listened have got a lot of benefit from it. I know I've picked up things as we've gone through. Um, Obviously, enjoy the new feature in Upgame. Any questions you have, do reach out to us. Um, and again, just big thanks to you, Trip, for joining us and helping. Um, anything to say before we sign off?
No, just keep getting better, man. I'm telling you, it's a great journey. No matter at what level you reach at golf, it teaches you so much about you and life. It's the best game on the planet, and you just enjoy the process of trying to improve at golf.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, everyone. Speak to you again soon.